Good morning, Year 4. Welcome to Session 5 of PSHE. Today we're going to look at scenarios and how we can manage those feelings within those scenarios and deal with certain situations and what we could do about them to help other people and to help ourselves. But the first thing I'd like you to do is think about all the feelings and emotions that we've talked about in the last 4 weeks. So I'd like you to create me a word bank or a word map or a mind map or around this stick person, some emotions and feelings that you can remember. So if you pause the video now, spend a couple of minutes and create that word bank. Thank you. Welcome back, Year 4. So hopefully now you've got a word bank of feelings and emotions. We're going to have a look at a few feelings or emotions, and then we're going to think about maybe some of the things that we might do if we feel those emotions. So we've got some things that we might do in more than one emotion, so that if people get angry, they might scream. If they're fearful, if they're feeling a lot of fear, they might scream. If they're excited, we know some children scream. Even adults scream. Okay? So certain reactions to our emotions apply to lots of things. So we don't have the same reaction all the time, and it differs for everybody. How you feel and how you show your reactions is very different. We need to understand that everyone has different reactions to emotions. And that's the really difficult part about understanding your emotions, that they might be very, very different to everybody else. Why do I not feel that? Why does he do that or she do that when that happens? So it's understanding that process, and actually it's okay to react differently, and understanding that other people, and being, as we've said in the past, being very patient and kind with people who react in different ways. So now that we've looked at a few, or we've only looked at one really reaction, but there are others that might have a different reaction. So if somebody's disappointed or if somebody's fearing something, they might be quiet. If they're sad, they might be quiet. So it's understanding that these reactions can cover a multitude of emotions. So I hope you've got a really good word bank. Maybe you could spend some time and think about what reactions you would have to these emotions. So today we are going to think about and how we feel and what we do in certain situations. So we need to really think about how our character is feeling. So how you would describe that feeling. So it might be that somebody asks you, how are you feeling? And how that we've talked about that anger might be like a bubbling volcano, and it gets hotter and hotter and it bubbles and it's more violent. Last week we talked about picturing an emotion. So whether it was a round, smooth ball or whether it was a very, very spiky, pointy, so it was sharp and it was quite prickly inside, that might be something that you could describe how your feeling was. We looked at colours and we looked at temperature. So the other thing we're going to look at is how our character might react. What physical reaction, what do we display to other people that shows them that we are feeling reacting to an emotion, and how that would take. And would that be appropriate in this situation? And we're going to think about why or why not. Okay, so depending on where you are, so let's have a think about that. If we were at a football match and somebody scored a goal, it would completely appropriate to stand and shout and cheer. If somebody got a question right in maybe a maths lesson, maybe it wouldn't quite be appropriate to have that same reaction that we all stood up and shouted and cheered. It would be a really, really good, successful thing that they'd achieved, but the reaction that we had would maybe, well done, or a little clap, okay? So in the where we are will determine how we are supposed to react. We need to think about as well what would help the character in that moment, at that time of the situation. What could or should they do in that situation? So depending on how they're reacting, they need to think about how they could or should. What could they or should they do? And then after the situation, how might they feel? What could they do? What should they do after this situation had taken place? Okay. So after thinking about all of those things, we have a series of scenarios, and these are all in the Google Drive for you. Now, a couple of the names are in our year group, but they are completely random, I can assure you. I've taken them off the PSHE website, so they are not anything to do with people in our year group or in our school. They are just random names that have been generated. So this sheet is also on the Google Drive for you, and I'd like you to maybe pick one of these scenarios and really unpick it and think about how your character's feeling and what words you can describe. So at that time this scenario is taking place, how your character is feeling. Think about your emotions, think about all those things, the colours, how you describe the shape of this feeling. And then think about how they might react. So if this is happening to you or to them, how are they going to react? And then what would you do to help this character at the time? So what I've done is I've chosen a different scenario. This is not on the scenario sheet. Somebody always pushes and shoves in the front of the line and doesn't walk quietly and sensible. Now, I want to think about how that makes everybody else who is choosing to walk sensibly, one behind the other, as we walk through the line or through the school. So if we put it into an everyday scenario in school, that we have to walk really sensibly and quietly because everybody else is working through the school. How does this make the person who is doing what they're expected to do, how does it make them feel when somebody isn't quite doing what's expected? Well, it might make them feel quite frustrated. So I might just not understand why they're not doing what they've been asked to do. I might get angry that I'm being pushed and shoved, because nobody should be pushing and shoving me when I'm doing the right thing. I might feel disappointed that the teacher might tell the whole of the class off because somebody isn't doing the right thing. And there are lots of other feelings that you might feel. So we might go with that I might just feel sad. Okay? I might feel quite embarrassed because maybe another teacher has come out and said that this is the wrong action to take, and I'm part of that group. So then I need to think about how my character might react, that I'm feeling all these things. I might shove the person back, even though I know that's not really very appropriate. I might shove them back because they've shoved me, and in that moment I haven't quite made the right decision. I might talk when I'm not supposed to talk in the line. I might shout and say how unfair, okay, it is. Okay, so there are lots of reactions that I might feel that if something is happening that I'm not very impressed with. Okay, I might just go very quiet because I might be embarrassed. What would help the character at the time in this situation? What could I do to help somebody who's always pushing and shoving? We might explain the situation, explain the expectations. Okay, we have huge expectations of what's appropriate in school, but we know you can all do it. So we might explain the expectations. They might have forgotten what they should be doing. We might tell the teacher. There are lots and lots of things that we can do. So what I'd like you to do is have a look at one of the other scenarios, and try and create a sheet like this for me. Now, there are two other boxes for us to fill in. What might we say about this situation? And then thinking about afterwards. Who should the character talk to? So the person that's really struggling with this scenario, who could they talk to? What would they say? So after the people have been shoving and pushing, we might have to apologise. We might have to say sorry to the people that we've been pushing into, that we've been unfair to. We might have to apologise to the teacher. Okay, we might have to apologise to people that we've disturbed their learning. So there are lots and lots of things we need to think about. So I'd like you to think about filling that sheet in for me. And then I'd like you to take a moment afterwards to think about, how does it feel to talk? Because actually, to share your emotions and how you're feeling can cover an awful lot of emotions. Just releasing that emotion and being able to explain it might make you feel lots of these things as well. So I'd really like you to take some time to think about, how does it feel to talk? How does it feel to share how you're feeling? So I'd love to see your sheets. I think we've had a fantastic PSHE session this term, and I hope you've begun to understand how other people's emotions affect everybody else. So send me all your emails and I will have a look at your fantastic emotions. Now, next week is our final PSHE lesson on emotions. Now, if any of you are going out for a walk, or if you have any pebbles in your garden, could you collect one for me? Because next week I'm going to set you a challenge that will involve a pebble. Okay? If you can make sure it's clean, that would be great, because I don't think mums and dads would really like dirty pebbles coming in. But if you could pick up a pebble for next week, that would be great. It doesn't have to be very big. Okay, probably bigger than about a 10p piece would be great. Okay, so challenge for next week, a pebble. Okay, thank you again. Okay, stay safe. Thank you. Bye.